Good evening. That marvelous piece that you just heard was by the Atlanta Symphony Youth Orchestra under the musical direction of Maestro Joseph Young. Let's give them another round of applause, please. Welcome to the Americans for the Arts 28th Annual Nancy Hanks Lecture on Arts and Public Policy. I'm Bob Lynch, President and CEO of Americans for the Arts, and I want to thank you for joining us here tonight at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. You'll get a chance to hear more from this impressive orchestra consisting of 106 young musicians ranging from age 13 to 18, and there are more than 400 community-based youth orchestras in America involving over 40,000 young musicians. We are joined tonight by many special guests, including House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi, our great friend. Congressional Arts Caucus Chair, the wonderful Louise Slaughter of New York. My own U.S. Senator from the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, my original home state and where I still vote, Senator Ed Markey, and so that there is at least one other person who knows how to properly pronounce the word arts as arts. So. Senator Al Franken of Minnesota is here with us. And I'm going to read off a number of representatives, but I want to say Representatives Ken Buck of Colorado, Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin, Tony Cardenas of California, Suzanne Bonamici, Oregon, and chair of the STEAM Caucus, co-chair of the STEAM Caucus, Ted Deutsch of Florida, and Mark Takano of California. Please. We are honored tonight to have with us the National Endowment for the Arts Chairman, Jane Chu, confirmed as the 11th chair in June 2014. And also Chairman Frank Hotzel. I'd like them both to please stand, and I think Chairman Chu is in the back up there, so please. There she is. This year, we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities, signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson on September 29th, 1965. So we look forward to a year of celebration. We're gathered here because we all believe in the power of the arts to transform the quality of our lives, to improve education for our children, and the quality of our communities. How would we communicate our history and our dreams without the arts and artists? And many of you in the audience and here on stage tonight and behind me are artists, whether you are a musician or a dancer or a writer or a painter or a filmmaker, actor, or singer. And we are grateful to all of you, and especially to the artists on our Americans for the Arts Artists Committee, who are helping us bring national attention to our issues, both tonight and on Capitol Hill tomorrow, for arts advocacy. And they include Norman Lear, Common, Holland Taylor, Doc Shaw, Victoria Rowell, and from the rock band OAR, lead singer Mark Roberge and lead guitar Richard Ahn. Thank them. We know that when it comes to making change happen in politics, it also takes behind-the-scenes, hard, grassroots advocacy to make our case. And that's why we have 87 of the most important national arts and civic advocacy organizations in our nation, representing more than 100,000 nonprofit cultural organizations of every discipline throughout every region of the country as national co-sponsors of Arts Advocacy Day. And they're joined by another 400 state and local arts leaders from around the country who are being shadowed by 100 future arts leaders currently enrolled in university and college arts administration programs. And I would like all of these Arts Advocacy Day participants to stand and be recognized for the valuable advocacy work that you are doing to help the arts and education arrive in America. Thank you. There they are. Beautiful. Thank you. I mentioned the 50th anniversary of the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the policy vote in September 1965 that has resulted in over $5 billion in funding the arts in the last 50 years. That's significant. Tonight, we celebrate policy with this policy lecture, but tomorrow is advocacy. And what really fascinates me is the work done for the 5 years before that vote, the advocacy work of people like you. And this brings me to one advocate in particular who I would like to recognize. Nancy Hanks herself said he was the nation's first arts lobbyist. His name is Jack Golodner, and he's here tonight. And he may not be a household name, but he is someone who has impacted each and every one of us. In the early 60s, Jack left his chief of staff job on Capitol Hill and opened his own lobbying firm. He represented Actors' Equity and worked with Americans for the Arts, then Another Name, and Nancy Hanks, and then eventually became the founder and longtime president of the AFL-CIO Department of Professional Employees, representing 4.4 million workers and all the artists' unions. He was also hired by Nancy Hanks at the Rockefeller Brothers Fund when she was there and serving as the chair of our organization, then named Arts Councils of America. And together, the two of them, along with many others it has been my privilege to know, worked behind the scenes to get the very first legislation passed to create, first, the National Council on the Arts in 1964, and then in 1965, the law that created the two endowments. Now, Jack had a chance to bring in such groups as the AFL-CIO, the Garment Workers, Steel Workers, and Auto Workers Unions, the Boy and Girl Scouts of America, AARP, and the Junior League. And together they got to know well and convinced lawmakers that the arts were a powerful economic force that benefited every American. He talked about jobs, about communities, about the grassroots. And he also knew that some good old-fashioned House of Cards style dealing was necessary to get things done in D.C. One example, it was a hot D.C. day in August 20th, 1964, when H.R. 9586, the legislation to create the National Council on the Arts, was languishing in the House on the last day to vote before the House adjourned for many of them to attend the 1964 Democratic National Convention. Jack learned about the vote crisis, and he knew it would be years before this opportunity came again. He immediately went to meet with Hubert Humphrey in his Senate office. You see, Hubert Humphrey was just 4 days away from being officially nominated as the Democratic vice presidential running mate to President Johnson. And when Senator Humphrey heard about the logjam, he picked up the phone and pulled then Speaker of the House, John McCormack, Massachusetts, off of the House floor to tell him he needed him to move up consideration of the arts bill. You could do that in those days. It must have been some call, because hours later the bill was moved up to vote and it passed the House 213 to 135. And the very next year, in 1965, Jack spent many late evenings working with Senator Claiborne Pell's staffer, Livingston Biddle, another former chair of the NEA, in drafting the original legislative language to create the National Foundation for the Arts. And it is because of his early advocacy work that the National Endowment will celebrate its 50th anniversary this fall. This is how advocacy works. And so, I would like to ask Jack Golodner to stand. He's out there somewhere. There you go, sir. Jack, you'll be pleased to know that we've continued to expand our advocacy coalition. I'm pleased that we have our public sector partners with us tonight, including Tom Cochran, longtime CEO of the United States Conference of Mayors, and Matt Chase of the National Association of Counties, as well as Jerry Abramson with the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. And finally, please help me thank our sponsors this evening, Nancy Stevens, Rick Rosenthal, Jamie and David Wolf of the Rosenthal Family Foundation, and Charles Seegers and his team at Ovation, the nation's only television arts network. Your partnership and your extraordinary generosity have played a key role in making this evening possible. We are deeply grateful. And you still don't get Norman Lear yet. There's more. So now a bit about tonight's program. When we asked Norman Lear what kind of music he likes, he said that he loves gospel, classical, patriotic, and spoken word. And being the award-winning producer that he is, Norman introduced us to the one person who could pull all of this together. Tonight's musical director, Nolan Williams Jr., is one of the country's foremost producers of inspirational arts programming. Highlights of his work include the music direction of the 2012 internationally televised dedication ceremony of the Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial, and also the artistic direction of the 2014 Philadelphia Freedom Festival. For tonight's dedicated musical tribute to Norman Lear, Nolan has arranged a new Americana medley featuring the Atlanta Symphony Youth Orchestra along with the glorious Voices of Inspiration. Please enjoy.